Welcome to the American Regularis podcast. This is episode number 25. I am your host, J.D. Walter. You can follow me on Twitter at reg_American1. If you need to email me, get a hold of me somehow, American Regularis podcast at gmail.com. Okay, episode number 25. Pretty excited about that. Nice little, not a round number, but a number that's, quarter of the way to 100, right? I kind of told myself I get to 50, I'm going to start asking people for guests to get on here. If you want to tell me who you want me to try to get on here as a guest, we're still a ways out, but use my Twitter, use my email. Let me know who you'd like me to try to get on here. I've got some ideas. I talked to Joe Rogan. He said he was busy, but I've got a couple backups as well. So that'll be in the future. But for today, it's just me and you and all you other enlightened people listening to me. So, not so bad. And I got to tell you, this week, every week I start off, I go, oh, what a busy week we've had, what a busy week. This week seems very slow by comparison. Doesn't mean that there isn't stuff to talk about. We've got stuff to talk about for sure. But, no one's been shot. No one's been kicked out of the presidency. It's kind of a nice change of pace. Seemingly, dare I say normal? I don't know if I'd go that far, but I don't know when the return to normalcy is. And as I kind of look back in the day, I think a lot of normalcy, like this idea, like normal, great America, like when I was a little kid watching Hulk Hogan and G.I. Joe and, the whole world was right. What was the illusion? I was a kid. Plus, we didn't have the internet to have all these voices, dissenting opinions, which is a good thing. But it was kind of that guy in the Matrix who's eating the steak and he knows it's not real. And he's like, ignorance is bliss, right? I think there's a bit of that. Now, it was like that and it wasn't because we still knew about stuff. Waco was on TV constantly. But the problem was it was the media-fed version. Go listen to the guys now talk about Waco. Go figure out what really happened at Ruby Ridge, right? That stuff was dark. People were aware of it, but you were given the abridged and edited and annotated and refined and processed version from the media. So who knows? But let's live in the present today. Lots going on. First, I want to talk about an arrest warrant that was given out by the nation of Germany. Now, what the hell do you care about that? I know. When I frame it that way, it's not that interesting. But let's get into it. According to the daily Süddeutsche Zeitung and the weekly Die Zeit, Zeitung just means time, it's newspaper in German. Zeit is time. It's just like saying the Daily Times or the Times, or the South German Times, basically, for the first one. They said in a joint report that federal prosecutors of Germany, remind you, obtained an arrest warrant in June against a Ukrainian man that was believed to have been residing in Poland. The report did not cite sources, but identified the man as, and I don't know if Ukraine or W's or V's, but Volodymyr Z, who is a professional diver. Now, okay, what the hell are you talking about, JD? I'm going to tell you. September 26, 2022, if you remember, as things were kicking off, there had been for a few months in the Ukraine and Russia war. In September, late September of that year, the Nordstream Pipeline was blown up undersea, right? This natural gas pipeline that gave, this Russia, this resource-rich country for fossil fuels especially, right? Providing Europe with so much natural gas, right? Which helps keep their energy prices down because aside from Norway and it's like Bulgaria or Romania or somewhere down there. There's just not a really, it's Europe for all it had going for it historically, all these peninsulas, a peninsula built out of peninsulas for maritime trade and stuff. In terms of fossil fuels, Europe has gotten the short end of the stick. There's a little oil in Norway, and Bulgaria, Romania, or somewhere down there has some. I think it's Romania, now that I talk about it. Could be wrong. Russia, rich with oil, rich with natural gas. And how did they deliver it? Through pipelines, right? Especially, let's say, if there's a country where over-the-road transits or pipelines that are on the land might make it difficult. This Nordstream Pipeline was a big deal to provide Europe, and in particular Germany. This was the main natural gas supply route to Germany. And it blows up in September. I'll be damned. Most of you guys should remember this, and if not, it was a big deal. And NATO, the Americans, blamed Russia for blowing up their own pipeline. They were hoping this would work, but then other people said, well, if Russia didn't want Europe to have their natural gas, couldn't they just close a valve? And the answer to that is, inevitably, yes. Yes, they could have just closed a valve instead of doing some high-risk, covert, deep-sea dive operation north of Denmark. Yeah, they would have just closed the valve. So, right away, we knew that was a BS answer, but it was unclear who did it. Seymour Hersh, great journalist, he came out and said he had sources saying it was more or less America that did that, with maybe some help from, was it the Polish or the Danish or something like that. It's been over a year, I think, since I've read that, or maybe even longer. Now, why now are we getting this arrest warrant? And no source is cited. We get the arrest warrant, and it's just for one guy, a lone wolf, just like old Crooks, just like old Matthew Thomas or Thomas Matthew Crooks. It's a lone wolf. And I'm not going to say that they say it's by himself, but he'll likely be the only guy, this Volodymyr, the professional diver from Ukraine, he'll likely be the only guy that is accused of this, is my guess. My theory, my running theory, this is unsubstantiated, but Germany is not going to just throw out an arrest warrant for the Nordstream Pipeline, the world's largest eco-terrorist event. Right? They're not just going to do that willy-nilly without talking to Uncle Sam, without talking to the Brits or whatever. NATO's going to be lockstep with this. And just like the banker bailouts and all that stuff in 2008, it was like one guy in America went to jail for that. Just one little minor low-key guy. My guess is Volodymyr Z, whoever that may be, whether that's a pseudonym or that's his real name or I'm mispronouncing it, he got the short end of the stick, and maybe, he'll wind up in a ditch. Maybe he'll go to prison, and the cameras will malfunction while he's in the special housing unit. I don't know. But I don't think it's that simple. And I don't think it was Ukraine acting alone. I mean, the proximity, where the attack on the Nord Stream happened is just right in the middle of the Baltic, next to NATO nations. And have you heard it? I mean, Ukraine has had some success against Russia's navy in the Black Sea, but not with their navy. Ukraine has no navy to speak of in the Baltic. What are we talking about? So even if this Volodymyr Z, maybe if he gets his just sentence for whatever it is he may or may not have done, right? He did not act alone, and he was likely a patsy, or maybe he was the real deal and he's an accomplice with the United States or some sort of NATO group. But this guy didn't do it on his own. He's damn sure gonna fall all by himself, right? And I don't think any of you guys have a problem believing me when I say that. Yeah, it wasn't just one Ukrainian diver that blew up one of the largest natural gas underwater pipelines. Sure. But let's ask ourselves why. Not why did he do that. Why is Germany throwing poor little Volodymyr under the bus? Well, I don't know. They definitely talked to other people before that. And in doing so, in throwing a Ukrainian under the bus, they are, in effect, throwing Ukraine under the bus. They're saying, hey, this was a Ukrainian national. Now, they might not say that he had direct orders from the government or that he was tied to the Zelensky regime, but they don't have to. They don't have to. That's kind of implied, right? Unless they bend over backwards saying otherwise. So, I'm wondering if this little detail that's not making huge waves right now, is this perchance the beginning of a backslide from this strong NATO embrace of this bastion of democracy that is Ukraine, this shining city on the hill guarded by the Nazi Azov battalion? Is this slowly them like kind of slinking back into the bushes like that Homer Simpson meme? I don't know. If so, it's damn time, because things are getting worse in Russia. Things are getting worse in Ukraine. I read the Russia-Ukraine war. Ukraine recently did an offensive into part of Russia. I don't know if what the motives were there. It's basically been shut down. The Ukrainians took heavy losses. I don't know if they were hoping to hold a piece of Russian land so that they could negotiate it for treaties. We've heard Zelensky say that he's getting closer and closer to wanting to do peace talks or treaty of somehow. I don't know if it was to embolden all the people funding this war, saying, oh, look, they took over parts of Russia, let's do that. I don't know if it was, I don't know what it was. I know it was more wanton death. So maybe all of this is kind of coming to a head, and now these politicians, instead of just admitting their years-long mistake that cost so many lives, maybe now they got to do this weaselly 6-month leaking things and slowly shedding light on stuff that all of us already know. And maybe that will finally progress into them getting their grubby hands out of this godforsaken war. Interesting to see, but what an admission. What an admission after saying, oh, this is Russian, this is Russia blowing up Russia stuff, to now Germany, one of the lapdogs of U.S. and NATO and whatever, the West at large, putting out a warrant on a Ukrainian diver. Now, second thing is here at home, and it's more political deception. What else is new? The Kamala Harris campaign announced, I think it was yesterday, that it's planning to present a plan to ban price gouging. And for those of you that are maybe new to politics or don't pay attention to their words, price gouging is when they're saying that companies are just running up prices unfairly, taking advantage of the poor consumer. So, the Harris campaign is wanting to make mandates for price controls, right? You're selling, let's say, eggs. We're going to make sure that you can't sell eggs for more than $4 a dozen. And to someone that can't see that second move in chess, that might sound good. Hey, they're going to make sure that stuff's not more expensive. But it's terrible. And I'm going to tell you why. First off, this is a red herring. The reason food prices are more expensive is not because corporations are saying, let's just charge them more. Let's just charge them more. We'll get a little greedier. We'll charge them more, and then we make more money. That is like that's the logic of like a 6-year-old kid. Hey, if we charge more, we'll make more money. Why not make the lemonade stand $10 and then no one buys the lemonade, right? And then the 6-year-old will probably come to the realization that they got to lower prices. These are market indicators. It's very fundamental. You can call it the invisible hand. You can call it common sense. You can call it human action, as I would, or common sense. It's both. The Harris campaign is pretending that they're unaware of any of these things. It's a red herring. This is the real cause, as I've mentioned on here, and as you probably know. The reason things have gotten more expensive is inflation. Inflation is not people making prices higher, though. A lot of people think inflation is when prices become higher, whether it's gas, whether it's housing, whether it's food. Higher prices is not inflation, right? It's an effect. It's a symptom of inflation, right? You don't say, what happened? It's like, I broke my arm. They're like, well, clearly. No, what happened? Well, I don't know. I fell off my bike or jumped off a house or whatever. That's what broke the arm. Like, this is clearly just a symptom. What inflation is an expansion of the money supply. And that's just a little bit fancier way of saying that the U.S. is printing dollars. And the more money you have, this is basic supply and demand. The more there is of something, the less valuable it generally is, almost always, right? If I've got one bottle of water on a desert island, it's worth a lot. If we're on a desert island and there are freshwater lakes and fast-flowing brooks and waterfalls and just the cleanest, little water everywhere, no one gives a damn about that bottle of water because we have a surplus. There's no scarcity of water there, right? Money is the exact same thing. The more dollars you have, the less valuable. The more dollars there are, the less valuable it is. And let me just tell you one thing. Since 2020, think of all the money. We can't really fathom this in our head logically. We did that little experiment the other day about just how big a trillion is, right? Since 2020, the U.S. has printed nearly 80% of all dollars in circulation. Since 2020. That's 4 years ago. 4 years ago. 80% of all the dollars out there. So every time you pull out money, all the money in circulation, 8 out of 10 of them, right, were printed in the last 4 years. That is an expansion of the money supply. That makes your dollar worth less. That depletes your savings. And that makes it the dollar weaker. So when these guys, these evil egg guys, the egg farmers, or the evil guys with the selling ground beef or canned corn, whatever, when all their prices go up, it's not because they're getting greedier. It's because to accrue the same amount of wealth, derive the same amount of profit from you, they have to ask for more money. When you hear every year, record-breaking corporate prices, record-breaking profits, like that's true. And I'm not saying corporations aren't greedy, right? These two things can live together in somewhat of harmony. But to maintain the exact amount of revenue in terms of like real wealth that they bring in, right? Like the government says, they try to keep inflation at 3%. So they should have, if the government could just perfect their little inflationary rate, and it's just 3% forever and always. That means every year, if you get a 3% increase in profits for your company, you're making the exact same as the year before. Except that's not what it was. Inflation went up to 9%, 9.5%, something like that. So prices go up and up and up. So what's the effect? We know that inflation's the problem now, and the high prices are the symptom of it. Now, instead of treating the disease, let's say Harris's economic plan to put on price controls, right? To eliminate price gouging, which means to stick government's hand in private transactions and mandate price controls. This is not her treating the disease. This is her treating the symptom. But treating this symptom has lots of ramifications. Lots of ramifications. For one, it's going to increase demand, right? Let's say eggs are $5 right now a dozen for whatever your fancy farm-grown, cage-free eggs, right? There's something else. Open range, cage-free, grass-fed chicken eggs, whatever. Organic. $5. She says now they're $3.50. Oh, great. That helps everybody out. Except I'm excited that I'm getting a better deal, and I know that they're not actually valued at that, so I'm going to buy more of them, and you're going to buy more of them. They're cheaper now. That's going to increase the demand, which means the chicken guys are going to have to make more of those eggs to keep up with the demand if they want to. If not, there will be, you guessed it, shortages, which are the number one symptom of price controls and price fixing, right? You see this when there's hurricanes. They say, hey, we're going to put price fixing on water. You can't overcharge these people water. And look, maybe in that situation, maybe it's a noble thought or idea. We can't charge people that are in this natural disaster $5 a bottle for water. We need to make it $1. Except guess what? The demand is up because of uncertainty and scarcity. And so when the water price doesn't increase, you buy and buy and buy. We saw this with toilet paper during COVID. It was uncertain times. You couldn't get toilet paper, right? If you put in price controls in like a hurricane situation on water, someone buys them all up and then they sell them for more. It's a natural price correction. The black market actually helps to naturally correct the price. So one, it'll increase the demand. And it'll, by that nature, it's going to decrease the supply. Another thing is quality reduction, right? Let's get away from eggs. Let's talk about another food that they let's say chicken nuggets, right? Frozen food, chicken nuggets. She puts a price control on that because little kids eat chicken nuggets. We can't be burning a hole in these parents' pockets, even though we just printed all this money to give to the banks, to give to the governments, to give to the corporations that give us book deals and give us back, give us money. So we're gonna put a price control on these chicken nuggets. Now, the chicken nugget guys have a few ideas what they can do. What do? We can't raise prices anymore. So we can just take massive losses, lose money, have to respond to our shareholders, tell them the bad news, close up stores, go out of business, right? No one's going to want to invest in your chicken nugget company. You're not going to get a loan when they say, well, you can't turn a profit on chicken nuggets because of price controls. It's physically impossible. So what do you have to do at this point? You can do the shrinkflation thing. You can sell less chicken nuggets in the same box and hope people don't notice. That'll cut costs. Obviously, the consumer will be less happy. The other thing you can do is reduce the quality, right? So we saw this, was it Whataburger? No, Chick-fil-A. No longer doing, no antibiotic chicken. They can't get it. They can't get their hands on it. This is before price controls. But now these chicken nugget guys, they go, okay, let's give them the same amount of chicken. We got to do it cheaper. The quality can't be as good. It just can't be. So what's the answer? Well, what's subsidized? We got to put the cheapest stuff we can in it. And the cheapest stuff is what the government subsidizes. So, more seed oils, more high fructose corn syrup, more soy. I'll tell you what we're putting less in: chicken, less healthy chicken, more breading, more seed oils, just more bullshit. The nation gets fatter, their health gets poorer, and they're paying the same or maybe a little less for it, but it's worse, right? I think I've mentioned this guy before. I really want to get on, I think it's Matthew Lysiak, the author of Fiat Food. What a great time to be able to get this guy on to talk about what these price controls will do and about how government monetary policy has just ruined America's food supply. It's just ruined it. It's the reason corn syrup's in everything. Hey, we'll subsidize it. We'll make corn super cheap. It's super addictive, and we'll tell you to eat 6 to 11 carbs, servings of grains and whatever a day, which is just preposterous. And you'll all get diabetes, and then we'll put peach cobbler on the American Diabetes recipes on the American Diabetes Association website, and we'll tell you, hey, there's really nothing you can do. You just keep eating 30% carbs and take your insulin, talk to Big Pharma, see how many more things. It's viciously dumb. There is a cascading effect that you just can't imagine when it comes to these economics. When you mess with one thing, the ramifications are so much bigger than you think. And then they compound and expand and compound and expand. And you lead to these very precarious markets, very uncertain times, all sorts of problems. And in this case, it'll make an already terrible American food supply that much worse. It'll make investments worse, right? There's lots of people. There's got to be mutual funds out there that have, Tyson Foods in them or some other big giant food company brand. And yeah, it could hurt your mutual fund or your stock in them, which I guess is somewhat small potatoes compared to just the fact that it's, in theory, supposed to be helping the poor people be able to, or even the middle class, to be able to afford groceries better. It won't. It'll have the opposite effect. Nixon tried this in the 70s. Some of the information I first got, I went to Mises.org. That's where you go when you want to know what's up. And I think I used an article from McMacken a couple weeks ago. But Ryan McMacken has a article up here. Kamala wants price controls, and it's not because she has good intentions. And he says this is all a political stunt because politically it was good for Nixon. But when you look at the economic data, Nixon put a bunch of price controls on stuff back in the 70s. And the results through and through were bad. They were bad. They hurt everything. They raised inflation. Carter took the heat for it. He had a quote here. I had a quote by McMacken from the article that I thought I wanted to say. To put it another way, the price control plan is nothing more than a cynical ploy to get Harris elected and to scapegoat farmers, ranchers, and other food producers. And that's what it is. She's sitting there letting you know that it's those guys being greedy. But she's got a plan to fix it. Now, I'm not saying Harris did the inflation, caused the inflation. She was in a regime, right? She was the vice president of Biden. He had a huge part in this. But the vice president doesn't have that much responsibility. But she's willing to throw these guys under the bus and say, you know what it is? It's these crooked little chicken farmers. It's these crooked companies, and some of them are crooked. But she's saying that's the reason everything's more expensive. This was the year. These were the last couple years when corporations decided to get greedy and do this unheard of plan that, like I said, a sixth grader, not even a sixth grader, a 6-year-old would figure out that plan. Make stuff more expensive, make more money. She's like, hey, they just figured this brilliant strategy out. The market's never tested it before, and now they've all got together to do it. I'll be damned. What fortuitous timing. Thank God we have a savior to come in and give us a simple fix by just signing something, and there will be no lasting effects to anything. It's the magic pill. That's what it is. This is an infomercial policy fix. Are you tired of spending too much money at the grocery store? It's not, it's just like the fat guy. Are you tired of being fat? Just put that, it's not about, eating better and working out. You just take this magic pill. Or when I was a kid, I used to go to, my grandfather had just a lot of random shit laying around, a lot of junk. He was an auctioneer. And in this back room of his office, he had just canned goods and whoever knows what else. But there was this one machine that I thought was so fun to play with. And it was you stood on it. It looked like kind of an old-fashioned scale. And then there was a band that you put around your waist. And you turn it on. And the band just... Well, I was a kid. I was skinny. But it was like a fat person would stand there, and then they'd just put the band around their back and their love handles, and it would just shake them and vibrate them. And at some point, someone sold it to him and was like, hey, if you're tired of being a fat, you don't have to work out. You don't have to eat. You just have to stand here and let this big old band just jiggle your fat. And it would start to like make your skin go numb. But you can sell it. That was the magic pill. Same thing. Kamala Harris's price control plan is as dumb as that fat burning machine. And that was just locked away in my grandfather's office somewhere. I wish I knew what that thing was called. I'd tell you to Google it to look at it and just see how preposterous it was. All right. I like to end on happy notes. I don't have a necessarily happy note about price controls. They'll work themselves out eventually. It becomes pretty apparent that they don't work. So we're going to turn to the happiest sort of news. News about me. Right? Self-centered old me. And I'm not really. But I want to share my little successes with people that are listening to me, right? You're my favorites. So, as you know, the reason I'm podcasting, and especially a libertarian podcast, is because of Dave Smith. I'm a libertarian because of Ron Paul. I'm a libertarian podcaster because of Dave Smith. Huge fan. Hate to miss an episode. I've been listening to him for years, and he's been a big influence on me, and I just wish the guy nothing but the best. He's great. So I went and I subscribed to the Inner Circle, or whatever. Dave Smith came out with his new website, and now like when he does podcasts now, there's like a chat on the side. And guess who got a shout out? Okay, not a shout out. He read one of my texts. That's significantly less than a shout out. But we're starting small, boys and girls. But we've been at it less than a year. Dave Smith has now said the name of this podcast. I might clip it into my intro music. I don't think Dave's the type of guy that would copyright me or something. And let me know what you think. The joke I make makes Dave Smith laugh, and you'll hear Robbie Bernstein give a little chuckle. It was in regards to Anthony Fauci gets COVID for the third time. 6 shots in. 6 vaccinations. Which is almost an oxymoron in itself, because vaccines used to mean something that were permanent. But the good doctor, Anthony Fauci, he got 6 shots and 3 COVIDs. I never got shot. I've gotten COVID once. Was tired for a day. And, that's neither here nor there, but it's there. Anthony Fauci gets COVID for the 3rd time. Dave and Robbie talk about it, bring up some points. And Robbie mentions, he goes, why would Anthony Fauci even bring this up? He's out of office. He's out of the public spotlight. Why would he tell everyone, hey, everybody, I got COVID again? Like, why would he say that? Like, he could have just did it quietly and just not look like a jerk for having 6 vaccines for a virus that he helped create. Like, why would he say that? And Dave Smith says, that's a good point. He likes to be humiliated. He must like to be humiliated. That must be why he likes to debate Rand Paul. Okay, that is the setup for this next clip I'm going to play you, because without that context, my clip might sound a little odd, but pay attention to the fact that Dave Smith says American Regularis. Does he mispronounce it a touch? Yes. Can Dave Smith mispronounce it? Yeah, I'll change the name of it. I'll start mispronouncing it if it gets me on part of the problem. I'll say that right now. All right, enjoy my I guess this is like a 15 seconds of minor internet fame. How about that?
American Regularis says Fauci asks COVID to spit in his mouth. I don't know. I really like that.
You hear that, boys and girls? He really liked it. All right. Not too big of a deal, but I got to be honest. I was listening to it live. I heard him read it, and I was like, I've been typing in there some. If I've made a couple of episodes, I'm like, all right, I'm going to have a really good question. And like I've even written a good question, copied it, cut it, got it out of there. And I was like, when he's saying, hey, it's time to take questions, I'm going to give this really insightful, this sharp, insightful, poignant point. Or I'm going to ask this really nice question. And honestly, I wrote that just BSing with some of the guys in the chat. But he took it, and it was fun, though. He laughed, Robbie laughed, and then you heard him at the end. He really liked it. So as far as I'm concerned, Dave Smith has basically given a full-throated endorsement to the American Regularis podcast, right? I'll see if I can't get under his flagship banner of Part of the Problem, maybe become like the JV guy. All right, I jest, but I had fun with it. That's it for me. I'll see you real soon here. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you on the next one.